Let's practice Pilates together in the heart of the forests of Snowdonia. Start with feet hip distance apart. This is called our parallel. We begin by taking 3 deep breaths into the ribs, inhaling deeply through the nose and exhaling deeply back through the nose. And now for some shoulder rolls. Let's take those shoulders backwards, bringing them all the way up to the ears, all the way back and all the way down. And repeating in the opposite direction. Be aware now of any tension that you're holding in your shoulders. And now stretching into the back of the neck and the shoulders, bringing the backs of your hands and your arms together, chin towards chest, stretching across the top of the shoulders, and then lifting through the legs, squeezing the glutes and opening the upper body out into a stretch. Now let's warm the sides of our body by taking a side bend, reaching down each side of the body, keeping the shoulders open and the chest open too. Feel that stretch down the whole length of the sides. And let's deepen that by bringing the arm in, feeling that stretch down the length of the arm, again being mindful to keep that chest and shoulders open. And now let's work through those feet, keeping your feet in a parallel position, rising up onto the toes, alternating between sides. Let's feel those toes spread out perfectly onto the mat. Now let's start to take a balance across from one side to the other. Hold the balance at the top for as long as feels comfortable. And now let's go for a complete balance, rising up onto your toes as high as you can, finding a spot on the wall or in front of you to keep yourself steady. Hold the balance for as long as possible, keeping tailbone and pelvis nice and neutral, hands on your hips for extra steadiness. Now at the top of this balance, we are going to bend our knees, keeping those heels raised really high. We're taking a stretch into the back of the legs by bending the knees. Look at thy feet working to keep me balanced. And now for a roll down, taking the chin into the chest, folding the shoulders forward. We're allowing the weight of our upper body to carry our body down towards the ground. Use a block if you need to here. Feeling the stretch at the back of the legs, bend and straighten your knees to deepen that stretch. Breathe deeply and enjoy the feeling of this stretch. We are now going to bend our knees, tuck the tailbone under and roll back up through the lower back, the mid back, the upper back. Shoulders come back and down and chin parallel to the ground. And we're going to repeat this. On this roll down, we are now going to bring our arms forward and we're going to press back into downward dog. Pressing deeply into the shoulders, tilting the hips up to the ceiling and working through those backs of legs and calves, alternating bending the knees to increase the stretch in each of the calf muscles. Breathe deeply and enjoy. We are now going to move through two positions. I'm bringing my body forward into a plank position. Shoulders over wrists, straight back and high pelvis. And I'm now working between those two postures, plank and pushing back into downward dog. And that is our warm-up complete. Stretch back into child's pose, take a few deep breaths and prepare for the main session. We're going to start our main session with a seated twist. Sitting with your legs crossed, either on a block or, if it's more comfortable, with your legs out in front of you. We're going to place our hands under our chin, keeping our elbows tucked in, and we are twisting from the mid-back, over from one side to the other, just twisting from that middle section of your back. Your head follows your body, rather than your head taking you further to each side. The sweet spot for this movement is that mid-back, creating mobility and movement in an area that is prone to tension and tightness. Notice how my chin is parallel to the ground. We're looking for a straight back with shoulders down and back. Now let's prepare to work the abdominal muscles. Laying on the mat, shoulders relaxed and feet firmly on the ground. I'm going to start by tilting my pelvis in both directions. Like a bucket of water, pouring it one way and then the other way. And then I'm going to settle on a midpoint between the two tilts. That is going to be my neutral pelvic position. From here, I'm going to tighten my belt, about 20%, belly button to spine. And we're going to bring our legs up into tabletop. Bringing one leg up 90 degrees, followed by the second leg. Bringing the first leg down and repeating. Alternating between sides. Notice how I'm checking that position, that my thighs are not coming closer to my body than 90 degrees, and that I'm bending again at 90 degrees at my knees. Taking deep breaths through this exercise, ensuring tightness in the core, supporting the spine. Hug those knees into your chest to relax those abdominal muscles before we move on to a more advanced version. Start by bringing your knees back into tabletop. Lift your shoulders and head off the ground, lightly gripping one knee to your body. Extend the other leg away from the body and alternate between the two positions. Try to avoid bringing your knee closer to your body than 90 degrees. Keep tension in the core, supporting the spine throughout this whole movement. Breathe deeply. This movement is not easy. Hug those knees into your chest. Thank yourself for that hard work and relax those abdominal muscles. Now let's work those glutes. Reposition yourself on the mat in your original position. We're going to tilt the tailbone and peel the back away from the mat. Feet are firmly on the ground. We're then going to roll back down through the upper back, mid back, lower back, back down to original position. Notice how I'm really tilting my pelvis and peeling my spine off the mat segment by segment, taking a hold, squeezing those glutes before lowering my back down to the mat. This time we're going to stay at the top of our shoulder bridge. I'm squeezing my glutes, engaging my core, and I'm pulsing at the top of the movement. Complete 10 pulses, roll back down with control, and repeat 3 times. Just take a quick look at your thighs. Make sure they are tracking from your hips and your knees aren't splaying out to the side or meeting together. Be sure in this movement to keep your rib cage anchored towards your hips. Breathe deeply and squeeze those glutes to keep those hips as high in the final repetition as in the first one. We're now going to take this exercise further. Rolling up with control, we're going to rotate our feet out onto the outer corners, pushing the knees apart. We're going to pump this while keeping those hips still raised high for 10 repetitions before rolling back down with control. Stretch your legs out long, your arms above your head, and enjoy taking a hold in this stretch. We are now going to come back to some abdominal work, and we are going to do the Pilates 100. Feet firmly on the ground, shoulders relaxed to begin with. We're going to lift our knees, our legs to tabletop, and we're going to raise the shoulders, the head and the arms away from the mat. From here, we are going to pump the arms nice and firmly, just a couple of inches above and below the position. We're going to pump the arms for 100 counts, breathing in deeply for 5 and breathing out for 5. Relaxing down and taking the legs down with control. Breathing deeply to relax. We're now going to repeat that 100. We're bringing the knees, legs into tabletop, shoulders, arms and head off the mat, pumping those arms, working the back of the arms, the triceps as we do this movement. Belly button to spine to support the spine, breathing deeply in and out. For the last movements, I'm going to extend my legs away to increase the work. My heels are together, my toes are pointing out. Hug your knees into your chest. Thank your body for that hard work. Now let's start to work the legs. I'm going to lay on my side, hips stacked on top of each other, my heels, my hips and my shoulders in line. My arm is away from my body and my head is resting with my chin away from chest. The front arm is supporting my posture. I'm flexing my foot and I'm lifting and lowering the top leg with control. The sweet spot here should be the upper thigh into the hips and round into the glutes. Keep that top foot flexed as you do this movement. I'm now keeping my leg in the top position, and I'm going to point and flex the foot for a deeper strengthening movement into the thigh. Make sure you're breathing deeply, keeping those hips stacked on top of each other, bracing your core and looking straight ahead. Now pointing the toe, I'm going to create large circles with that top leg. 10 large circles. Bring that knee into the body, give it a rub to help with the burn. I'm now going to bring the knees in towards the body and the feet away, and we're going to do our clam. Feet together, I'm bringing my top knee away from the underneath knee, making sure the hips are still stacked on each other, the movement only coming from that top hip. We want to raise that knee only to the point that the hips don't start to move away from the body. You can bring your hand to your hip to ensure that that movement is just coming from the hip only. Now let's move to the other side and repeat all of those movements on the other leg. Remember, heels, hips and shoulders in line and hips stacked on top of each other. Use that front arm to keep yourself steady. Check that positioning before you begin. Flexing that top foot, drawing the leg up and down with control. See how I constantly check my positioning to ensure that I'm doing the movement correctly. Chin away from chest, looking straight ahead. Back to pointing and flexing the foot, increasing the strengthening movements in that upper thigh. Breathe deeply with control. And then into our circles. Pointing the toe, we're going to take 10 circles in one direction, followed by 10 in the other direction. Keep the hips stacked on top of each other. And now repeating the clam. Knees into the body, feet away, lifting and lowering the top leg. Remember to only lift it as high as you can before extra movement in the hips starts. We want to keep this movement isolated just into that top hip. Take a stretch into child's pose. Take some deep breaths and enjoy some relaxation. We're now going to work the back in our cat-cow position. Knees under hips on all fours and wrists under shoulders. I'm going to start by tucking my tailbone, rolling through the spine and finishing with my head in one direction, and then arching the tailbone, rolling through the spine, finishing with my head in the other direction. Always start with the tailbone, ripple through the rest of the back, finishing with the final head movement. This movement is going to allow a fantastic stretch and mobility in the whole of the spine. Take a hold at each stage of the stretch to enjoy some tension relieving work into your back. Stretch back into child's pose. Take some deep breaths. Now let's work the back of our body, laying flat on your mat, forehead on the mat, arms at a 90-degree angle. We're going to lift and lower the upper body. Neck stays long, and we are aiming to relax our glutes and our legs, the movement purely coming from our mid-back region. Lift and lower with control, breathing deeply. Now let's finish our practice with a stretch. Bring one knee into the body and then up to the sky. Supporting behind the leg, we're going to point and flex the foot. Here we are stretching the hamstrings, and by pointing and flexing, we're increasing the stretch into our calves. We're now going to bend the knee, flex the foot, and push the leg away, deepening the stretch each time. Breathe deeply. Now take a hold and enjoy the stretch into the back of the leg. From here we're going to go into a glute stretch, bringing your flexed foot across your opposite thigh, holding onto that thigh, bringing it in towards the body. We're going to flex the knee. We're pushing that knee out to the side and the tailbone down towards the mat to increase the stretch of the glute. And now into a back stretch. Take that bended knee across the body, taking the opposite arm away. Feel that stretch into the mid-back. Breathe deeply. Stretch the arms and legs away from the body. And we're going to repeat that stretching on the other side. Bringing that knee into the chest. And then stretching the hamstrings and calf muscles. Notice one side is tighter than the other. Be aware of breathing and relaxing into that side, helping to relieve tension and promote flexibility and mobility. Back into that glute stretch, raising and lowering that leg to deepen the stretch, bringing my knee out to the side and tailbone to the mat to deepen the stretch. And then into the back stretch, bringing that leg across the body, Stretching the opposite arm out, pushing the shoulder towards the mat and your knee away. Enjoy the stretch into your back. Breathe deeply. Hug your knees into your chest. Move from side to side. Lift up. And then when you're ready, make your way to sitting. Give your neck a stretch forward and to the sides to finish. Thank you for joining me on my forest flow. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.